Welcome to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Today we're going to be talking about crime, specifically mitigating crime, with the local Crime Stoppers. We have board member or board president, Mr. Mendoza, and we have Lieutenant Kandarian, both with the local Crime Stoppers organization. Both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to start with you, Mr. Mendoza. Talk about what Crime Stoppers really is, because I see you everywhere. I see you on commercials. I see you in the newspaper, but I don't really know what exactly you do.
Crime Stoppers is an organization comprised of business people. We have a few attorneys. We have one police officer from the police department, two people from the sheriff's department that are on our board. And what we do is we try to mitigate crime by offering cash rewards from graffiti to murderers. And with our board, we have 27 of us on the board, and they're just regular business guys like myself, and we're all trying to give back to the community.
Lieutenant Kandarian, you have a Fresno County Sheriff's uniform on. I presume you're the representative from the Sheriff's Department?
That's correct.
How do you play into this whole board and the Crime Stoppers?
Well, I got into it about 8 years ago, and I'm actually the sheriff's representative to the board. So I'm kind of viewed upon as an advisor to the board. I will relay information from the sheriff to the board and bring the information back. The sheriff understands the necessity to have a public-private partnership, and that's basically what I do over there.
How are they doing, by the way, as an advisor? How are they doing?
Well, let me tell you. The last lieutenant that retired was the Crime Stoppers representative, and I think that was about 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And at the time, I was the homicide unit commander, and that position, the Crime Stoppers position, came to me from my boss. And I was thinking, okay, here we go, another board to be on, right? And more meetings to attend after hours and stuff like that. But to make a long story short, I've been with them for 8 or 9 years now, and I can tell you they're doing great. This is the finest organization, a volunteer organization of people that I have ever been associated with. They're just outstanding.
Mr. Mendoza, what do you do as your day job? Because you mentioned the board is all volunteer. You have volunteers like yourself. You have a few attorneys and business representatives. So what is your day job?
Well, I started a business many years ago. I was a driving truck bringing whiskey bottles from Owens, Illinois to Shenley Distillers in Fresno. That's a lot of years ago. And when I got out of the truck, I had a little money and opened a truck stop behind Hall's Restaurant at Church and Golden State Boulevard. And I started there with just a little nothing, but a lot of desire to be successful. And from that time on, I got 1 truck, 2 trucks, 3 trucks. Now we're running almost 50 trucks. I have a trucking company, a warehouse distribution center, and a leasing company. And we have 60 guys on the payroll, 60 families, I call them. They're families. I have some people that have been with me 30 to 35 years. We're a big glass carrier for PPG. There's one of our big deals. We're a steel carrier for PDM Steel, Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel in Fresno. Have a lot of good accounts. We like what we do, and we're pretty good at it. And I'm trying to get back to the community by being involved with the Crime Stoppers. I belong to the Rotary. I belong to the Fresno Transportation, California Truckers Association, and that sort of thing.
Sounds like you've had a lot of success in your life and business, so congratulations on that. But why are you involved in Crime Stoppers? I mean, take us back to the day when you got involved. Did you wake up one day and tell your family, guess what, I want to be a part of Crime Stoppers?
No, it didn't quite work that way. I had a friend of mine that worked at Peabody Flowaway down the street a little ways from us, and they just started Crime Stoppers in Fresno in 1994. And he invited me to go to one of the meetings and to see what it was about. And that was when when the Crime Stoppers came to Fresno, started. And I was just, I was kind of hooked. It was one of the things that we can give back to the community to make a safer place for our children, for our families, and for our community as a whole. And I don't want to get ahead here, but we are driven by corporate sponsors, and the corporate sponsors is from $300 a year to $7,500 a year.
And at this time would be perfect for you to talk about who your sponsors are.
Well, the normal sponsorship is a $1,200 a year, $100 a month, and that's all like all of our companies. We put $1,200 a year, but my big sponsor would be Donagy Sales. They are our beer sponsors. Yosemite Linen does all of our linen for all of our functions throughout the year. Jack Frost Ice gives us all our ice for all year long. These are in-kind sponsors we talk about that make our fundraiser successful so that we have money to operate this organization. The organization is actually run on 3 fundraisers, which is June Jam, a Cigar Fest in September, then we have a couple small golf tournaments that all the monies come back to run the organization. The tips are paid through the sponsorship.
So I want to stop you there, but don't lose that train of thought. So if I have this correctly, the money goes into a pot, and then what happens is you do a special or something, and the reward money comes out of that pot.
No. The way
I was incorrect, sorry about that.
The way it works is, and this is the reason I'm on board, I stay on board and I speak a lot at Rotary schools and that area, those areas, but the reason that I can actually tell people that want to become a Crime Stopper corporate sponsor, and that's $300 to whatever, $1,200 kind of a normal, that in our bylaws it says 100% of the corporate sponsors goes to the rewards.
Okay.
Not 1 cent is used to run the organization, to do our printing, to pay for all the other things we have.
Lieutenant, I want to ask you a little bit about your background with the Sheriff's Department. I mean, you're an advisor to this board, but prior to that, how many years had you been, or have you been, with the Sheriff's Department? And talk about a little bit about your role in the department.
Well, I've been with the department for about 28 years. I started off as a reserve deputy while I was going to Fresno State earning my degree, and I've worked my way up through the ranks since then. I've worked in just about every area in the department you can work. Currently, I'm the unit commander for the Magic Unit.
And are you seeing that Crime Stoppers is making a difference? And the reason I ask you the question is you're in the position as law enforcement to actually see the work that they're doing. So you tell us, how are they doing?
Well, like I told you before, I mean, they're doing great. As far as making a huge dent in crime, we account for about 700 arrests a year. And, you know, in the huge picture, I think we arrest maybe 50,000. There's about 50,000 arrests in a year in Fresno County. So 700 out of that, it's not a huge percentage. However, you know, you can't put a price tag on certain crimes. And Crime Stoppers, some of these 700 that we've arrested every year, they're significant cases. And they're cases that would have never been solved if it weren't for Crime Stoppers. So when you're talking about the numbers, you know, if you lost a family member to a homicide, you can't put a price tag on that. And that's what these people do. They provide the money and they provide the media outlets to allow us to get the message out there and to bring in the tips.
Mr. Mendoza, we are going to actually see, after this question, we're going to actually see a video on YouTube about local Crime Stoppers. But why should people report this kind of stuff? I mean, if I'm sitting at home, my life is busy, I go to work, I do all kinds of things, and I've got my own problems to deal with. Why should I get involved, and why should I make the call and turn someone in?
Well, most of the time, you wouldn't get involved if it wasn't particularly have something to do with you or your family. You just kind of say, well, I don't want to get involved. I'm not going to do this. But as a whole, we all got to come together and get involved to make it a safer place, because if you can call us with a crime, with something that has happened, and you give it to us and we do a reenactment, and especially if it's a really a bad deal, bad crime, then we can alert the sheriff's department, the police department, we'll do the reenactments. But we cannot do our job as Crime Stoppers operations without the tips without the involvement of the community.
Speaking of involvement in the community, one of the things that we're going to see right now is a reenactment with Valley Crime Stoppers. So let's turn that video on right now.
Did you do anything right? Time.
Shut up!
Don't tell me to shut up. I'll shut you up. You
Let
ain't
go!
going anywhere.
I said let go! Let go!
Don't tell me what to do.
Give me that. No, okay.
Stop
Please
telling
don't.
me what to do.
You just watched a segment of Crime Stoppers that is from the actual Valley. Mr. Mendoza, when you're doing reenactments like the one that we just saw, are those the ones that you're playing at your other media outlets from your sponsors?
Oh, definitely, yes. Matter of fact, our media sponsors, if I could kind of list them a
Yes,
little bit.
please do.
Channel 24, Matt Rosenfeld is the head of 24 and 47 now that it's purchased together. The Fresno Bee and Peak Radio and JSA, Bruce Batty is our media partners that give over, probably between the 5 of them, give over $1 million in free time for the
$1 million of
a
free
year.
advertisement.
$1 million in free advertisement a year from these media partners. We do the reenactment on 24 and their crew, and then when it's really a bad crime, then we need to get it on the TV as fast as we can so we can get response before the case goes cold. So we really try to do the reenactments, and we'll run them and run them and run them until we can get these bad guys off the street.
Lieutenant, we were talking a little offline about who are the actors and actresses, because in a reenactment, that takes a lot of work. You have to write the screenplay, you have to find a location. One time you were burning a car. Who does the acting for these things?
Well, we find people. I've had the privilege of doing several of them myself. But what Dale was talking about on the reenactments, we do on average, about 50 of them a year. And going into the $1 million in-kind contribution from our media partners, these enactments, the news media is bringing out a large production crew, as you know, because we're doing this here. And they take their production crew on the road. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of resources to film one. And
Filming, for our audience members who don't know, and you all know, filming even a show like this takes a lot of work. The people behind the cameras here are all volunteers. So, it's awesome that you all also are using the media to get the message across as well. You mentioned a couple of your media sponsors, but what other businesses contribute to the reward?
Well, we have a whole list. We have 78 corporate sponsors that are listed that are from the $300 to $1,200 a year corporate sponsors. And that, like I said earlier, that money, 100% of that money goes to the cause, goes to the rewards. If I could give you some numbers, we had over 1,700 calls in 212. We have our annual report. We arrested almost 800 people, and we paid out almost $80,000 in rewards.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
and that's stimulating the economy as well, if you think about it, because all people are doing are reporting a crime, and they're getting $1,000, which I'm sure they're going out there and spending and stimulating our economy.
Right. I had a friend of mine, it's funny you say that, I had a friend of mine ask me, he is a corporate sponsor, and he asked me, Sam, he said, well, when do you pay your rewards? And I said, well, normally we try to get them paid within a week, the first of the month. And he said, well, you ought to think about moving them to the end of the month because everybody's out of money and they're going to call in on their grandmother kind of thing. So we moved it to the end of the month, and it's just unbelievable the support we're getting.
So either of you gentlemen, walk us through the actual process. We've talked about who you are and what you do, but I haven't asked you about the steps that it takes. So A crime is committed.
Right.
Then what happens?
Well, it becomes noted that there is a crime, whether it's a killing, a robbery. Then the sheriff takes it on, or the police department takes it on. Then if we do our reenactment, then from there, if you know of a crime, you call the 498 stop number. We don't want to know who you are. We don't want your name. All we're going to give you a code number. When we give you the code number, you kind of watch the paper or call in the following week, and all we're interested in is an arrest, not conviction, just an arrest. And once we have that done, you call back with your code number, and we tell you, okay, we have the guy arrested. So now you go out to the bank at Herndon, and first you go to the outside drive window, punch your code in, and here comes your money.
Very easy. I mean, it sounds like it's a very, you think of a doctor when a doctor's doing surgery, step by step, step
Right.
by step. That's what it sounds like here.
It is. It is a step by step. But the biggest problem we're having is getting the public to know that it's anonymous. Anonymity is so important. And the way the anonymity works, when a call comes in to the Crime Stoppers line, it goes to Canada.
Okay.
From Canada, it goes to Houston. From Houston, it comes to our police department. So it is filtered so that it filters itself so we don't know who the caller is.
You were telling us a story about a murder that occurred. Talk about that. That was off camera.
There was a murder about 25 years ago. This lady from Selma had gone out and was partying a little bit, relaxing, whatever, and after a couple of drinks or whatever, maybe later in the evening, she brought this fellow home from the bar, and things didn't go just like he wanted to go, so he killed her. And we got the case. This has been a lot of years ago. It was before we were established. It was like 22 years ago. And when Crime Stoppers got started, we went back to cold cases, and we finally came across this one from Selma where this lady had gotten killed. And the lady had a 2-year-old daughter at the time she got killed. So 20 years later, we did a little reenactment on this 20-year-old crime, just to show you how we work. It just amazes me. And this lady from Selma called the hotline, the Crime Stoppers hotline. She said, I know who did that crime 20 years ago. She said, it was my husband. He came home at night, all bloody, and he just said that he'd gotten in a fight and everything. And she said, after reviewing the reenactment and the names and everything, she said, I knew he wasn't telling the truth, and I'm sure he's the one that did it.
That is amazing.
It's really amazing. She gave us the name. We tracked the fella down to San Diego. We called the San Diego police. The detectives down there staked the area out where the fellow was supposed to be living, and they staked it out for 2 days. Finally, one morning, the fellow walks out. The Selma detectives walked up to him and said, we're such and such from the Selma Police Department. And they said the fellow just turned white. He knew that he was caught.
It sounds like that was a random crime. Lieutenant, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit and ask you. I mean, when we were growing up, my mom and dad and family members would say, don't stay out too late, be careful who you're friends with, because crime can happen. And thank goodness we weren't involved in gruesome crimes.
Right.
But it's happening out there. Or you see it more than the average person. What can you say about these kind of random crimes?
As far as Crime Stoppers' relationship to it?
Just
or?
as far as general goes.
I don't know. We live in an instant access world today, so I think that we see more of it. Actually, the last few years, the real violent crime has gone down just slightly. But I do agree with you. It's different than it was 25 years ago. It's very different. When we were kids, things were much safer than they are now. Things have become very violent. People do not hesitate to pull out guns now and use them. So we see it. I mean, it's almost, in some areas, in some neighborhoods, it's almost daily life now. And it's not just isolated to Fresno, but across the United States.
So we just have to be cautious, what you would say.
You have to be very vigilant with everything you do anymore. You always have to, look over your shoulder and keep an eye out.
Mr. Mendoza, talk about the meetings. What happens at these meetings? How do you know which crime to select? I mean, I'm sure there's a process for this.
Let me finish that one story from the Selma thing.
Okay, sorry about
I
that.
didn't quite get done there. So anyway, the fellow we got him extradited back to Fresno, got him prosecuted, and we had a news media conference at the news, people did a news conference on this arrest and conviction of this murder that happened 20 years ago. And the thing that we'd kind of get at you is a little bit the daughter was 20 years old at this time and came to the news media. She was at the news release when we did this. And so what we do, it's not all about crime, it's about the victim too, about taking care of or getting some justice for the victim. And I think the sheriff's department, the police department have their hands full. Well, us community minded people, myself included, I'm really, really conscious about the Crime Stoppers, but it's about us giving back to the community, helping the police department, helping the sheriff's department, the district attorney, and making a safer place for our families.
You know, I'm going to ask you the question about the board in a little bit, but that comment just got me another question I want to ask Lieutenant about. We hear that, there's the community, when the community comes together, there's less crime or crimes get resolved.
True.
In your opinion, is that true?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Law enforcement cannot work, absolutely cannot work without the community's help. We need to have that private-public partnership that I talked about earlier. The sheriff understands, Sheriff Mims understands how important that is. She is so dedicated to not only the Crime Stoppers program, but reaching out to the community in any area that she can. Because we derive a lot of our power from the community. The community empowers us to go out and enforce the laws, and they're our partners and they help us, and we can't see everything, we can't be everywhere, and we need the community's help.
So, Mr. Mendoza, going to you, let's talk about the board meetings. And is the board meeting where the crime is selected to do a reenactment?
No, not actually. The board actually is the one that keeps it all together. The crimes are actually that they do in a reenactment on is picked by the sheriff's department or the police department in-house. They are the people that talk about because they know more about how severe the crime is and how many times the fellow's done it, this sort of thing. So they are the ones that pick what crime would be featured.
Either of you, talk about, you mentioned the instance where the individual got apprehended for the Selma murder and the actual victim's daughter was at the press conference. Either of you, talk about the other things the victims are saying to you too, or if you're getting letters from them, talk about what they're telling you.
What we find with the victims, especially when it's a close-knit family, they are actually, we've had one family come to us and collected like $10,000 to get their brother was murdered here in town, innocent fellow, and just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. We did a reenactment on that, and we actually had this small family gather all their monies together and bring them to us, and to up the ante to get this solved. So we have a lot of input from the families that call and want to know where we're at on their crime, and we have actually had a lot of letters when we have solved the crimes.
We are running out of time this week on the program, but in your opinion, more corporate sponsors and more people who get involved, what could that do to your organization? How can it benefit you?
Oh, I need help so bad. Our board needs, we need to get to 100 corporate sponsors. If I could get 100 corporate sponsors, that would give us $120,000 in that area. so that we can do more advertisement, we can get more monies, we can offer better rewards, and it would just, the way to help this organization is through our business. I have individuals that send me $1,200 a year, send us $1,200 a year, or $300, or whatever the amount is. But we definitely need the corporate sponsors to keep us going, so that we can, and now I have this new lady, Michelle, that is really 110%, and we're working really hard. We're going into the high schools, into the the middle schools, for our county education. We're going to teach these younger people about crime, try to save some kids. So we do a lot of print material, and we really need help.
Talk about where people can find out more information, a website, or even where we can find the stories that have aired on Crime Stoppers.
We have a website that you can find it on the website. Have email. We have we have a phone number. That's one way to do it. And then watch the paper, because in a lot of the news medias we have our Crime Stoppers on the bottom, and it tells you how to get a hold of us in case you want to be a Crime Stopper corporate sponsor. And back to the end of the day, and that's one of the reasons I really stay on board, because whoever is involved as a sponsor, they can know that 100% of their money goes to get the bad guy off the street.
On that note, you have been watching and listening to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs production in partnership between 90.7 FM and CMAC in Fresno. Today we heard about Crime Stoppers with Board President, Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you.
And Deputy Sheriff, or Deputy with the County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Kandarian. To the volunteer crew that made this production and every production possible, thank you for watching. Tune in next week for a new episode.